Hello and welcome to PMQs with Graham Hughes. Not much time to go because we've already started, so I just paused this. I'm going to just let it play. Okay. Hi everyone. Hi everyone in the chat. Number one. If you'd like to join everyone in the chat, just hit the subscribe button. Oh, you can't hear it. Sorry.
Of the Ukrainians is inspiring.
Just mentioned it's 3 years since the barbaric invasion of Ukraine.
For as long as it takes. Mr. Speaker, that's why we're increasing defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by April 2027, with an ambition to reach 3% in the next Parliament as economic and fiscal conditions allow. And this afternoon, of course, I will travel to the US to have discussions with President Trump about the enduring security partnership between our two countries. Mr. Speaker, I'm also delighted that we've announced the first 750 schools to start offering free breakfast clubs. This is our plan for change in action, ensuring every child has the chance to thrive. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the whole House will want to join me in thanking Amanda Pritchard for her services as Chief Executive of the NHS England, and I wish her well for the future. This morning, Mr. Speaker, I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Dr. Luca.
Could the Prime Minister tell this House whether the outcome of his budget was by design or by mistake? Did he mean to push 100,000 pensioners into poverty with his own analysis when he removed the winter fuel allowance, or was that a mistake? Did he mean to decimate family farming when he changed the inheritance tax, or was that a mistake? And did he mean to tax GPs, care homes and hospices when he raised NICs, or was that a mistake? Prime Minister, could he tell the House, are these acceptable collateral damage in his path for change, or simply a mistake that need rectifying?
I'll tell you what was a mistake, leaving a £22 billion black hole.
Hey, he's mentioned it already. God, straight in there with the 22 billion.
Investing in our NHS, and I would have thought he would have welcomed the 2 million extra appointments that we've achieved in the first 7 months of a Labour government. That's the difference our budget is making to people.
Alex McIntyre.
Delighted that Calton and Grange primary schools in my city of Gloucester will be part of the first 750 schools to get free.
Compassionate Conservative, yeah.
And I'm pleased that this government is already delivering on its manifesto promises in less than a year. So will the Prime Minister agree with me that by helping working parents with childcare and delivering the best start to the day for every single child, we are delivering opportunity for the next generation?
Well, I agree, my honourable friend. We're pleased that 2 of the early adopter schools will be in his constituency. Mr. Speaker, we're ensuring that all primary school children...
So this is running a little bit faster because we're just getting up to speed.
And at least 30 minutes of free childcare. And that means every child ready to learn, and parents, of course, supported with up to £450 a year back in their pockets. That's the change a Labour government makes.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish the Prime Minister every success on his trip to Washington. The visit to see President Trump must serve our national interest. The Prime Minister and I are completely united in our support for Ukraine as a proud and sovereign nation. What specific steps will he take to ensure Ukraine is at the negotiating table for any peace settlement?
Well, I thank her for her words about the forthcoming trip. And it is right, and I think the whole House will think it's right, that Ukraine must be at the table at negotiations. There can be no negotiations about Ukraine without Ukraine. That has been my consistent position in all of the discussions that I've had. That will continue to be my position, because this is about the sovereignty of Ukraine and their ability to decide for themselves the future of their country. So they must be at the table.
Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Prime Minister for that answer, and as I said, I wish him every success. We want to support him on this issue. So turning to the details of the plan he set out yesterday. Over the weekend, I suggested to the Prime Minister that he cut the aid budget, and I'm pleased that he accepted my advice. Mr. Speaker, it's the fastest response. It's the fastest response I've ever had from the Prime Minister. However, he announced £13.4 billion in additional defence spending yesterday. This morning, his Defence Secretary said the uplift is only £6 billion, which is the correct figure.
Prime Minister.
I'm going to have to let the Leader of the Opposition down gently. She didn't feature in my thinking at all. I was so busy over the weekend I didn't even see her proposal. I think she's appointed herself, saviour of the Western civilization. It's a desperate search for relevance.
Stick the knife in.
Look, if you take the numbers for this financial year and then the numbers for the financial year 27-28, that's £13.4 billion increase. That is the largest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War, which will put us in a position to ensure the security and defence of our country and of Europe.
Yeah, but what about the figures that was misspoken
Speaker,
about?
that wasn't very clear. How is it that the Defence Secretary says 6 billion
because
and
of inflation.
he says 13.4 billion?
Because of inflation.
The IFS said today that the government is playing silly games with numbers. How does he find this difference in numbers?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we went through this 2 weeks ago, going through the same question over and over again. So let me say it. If you take the financial year this year, and then you take the financial year for 2027-28, the difference between the two is 13.4 billion. That's the same answer. If you ask again, I'll give the same answer again.
I'll decide when it's more.
Mr. Speaker, someone needs to tell the Prime Minister that being patronising is not a substitute.
Being patronising isn't very nice.
It's not a substitute. He hasn't answered. What he has said is different from what he said yesterday. We are still not clear where the money is coming from. We want to support him. He's also said that we should put British troops on the ground in Ukraine. We haven't seen the detail of any proposals. Would his new spending plans allow him to fund this commitment effectively?
Prime Minister.
I mean, I think it's the same question again. It's 13.4 billion. That's the difference between this year and 2020. She asked a serious question about the security guarantees in Ukraine, and that is extremely important, because the worst of all outcomes, if there's to be a cessation of hostilities, is that it is a short break rather than sustained and lasting peace. And I think that that means there's got to be security guarantees. I've indicated that we will play our full part. There has to be US backing, because otherwise I don't think it will deter Putin. We are working on that. I'm having extensive discussions about it, not in a position to put details before the House, as she well knows today, but I'll continue down that route, because I want a lasting peace in Ukraine and Europe for the safety and security of Ukrainians, of Europeans, and of course for everybody in this country.
Mr. Speaker, this is an endeavour that we want to support him in, but we need to know exactly what it is we're supporting. We need clarity and transparency over the money. We also need to know where this money is going. This morning, the Defence Secretary could not say if the Chagos deal would come out of the defence budget. Can he confirm to the House that none of the defence uplift includes payments for his Chagos deal?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the additional spend I announced yesterday is for our capability on defence and security in Europe, as made absolutely clear yesterday. The Chagos deal is extremely important for our security, for US security. The US are rightly looking at it. When it's finalised, I'll put it before the House with the costings. The figures being bandied around are absolutely wild at the moment.
Badenoch preaching about being patronising, that's Mitch. You're absolutely right, Ivan. Thanks for the super chat.
The funding I announced yesterday is for our capability to put ourselves in a position to rise to a generational challenge. That is what that money is all about, and I thought she supported it.
Speaker, we need to make sure we are supporting a plan that is clear and transparent. Yesterday, the Prime Minister set an ambition for defence spending to reach 3% in the next Parliament. We agree with him, but this could be 2034, almost a decade away. That is too slow. We don't know how he will pay for it. We cannot raise taxes further. We already pay more on debt interest than defence, and everyone in this House would have heard him not answer the last question. So I will ask him again. Is he paying for the Chagos deal with this defence uplift or not?
Prime Minister.
I've just dealt with that question. She gave her the money announced yesterday is going to our capability to put ourselves in a position to defend the security of our country, Europe and the UK. And she asked about defence spending. She gave what people have described as a rambling speech yesterday when she couldn't say what defence spending should be. We've been absolutely clear. We've set it out, a full, credible, costed plan, and I thought she supported it.
Has he been absolutely clear?
Ollie Billington.
Thank you, Mr.
I've been absolutely
Speaker.
clear.
The Prime Minister will be aware that in coastal communities like mine in East Stannis, people
again.
develop cancer earlier,
She can't help
get
it.
treated and diagnosed later, and die younger. Can he give the House
Keir
an
Starmer's
update on the
more
plans for the
comfortable
government
with the
to
whole
implement
PMQs
the recommendations by the Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty, into tackling poor health in our seaside towns?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank her for raising this. She's right that cancer patients are waiting too long for diagnosis and for treatment. Addressing healthcare inequity is part of our 10-year health plan, Mr. Speaker, aiming to halve the gap in healthy life expectancy between the richest and the poorest regions, and we're making progress on that already.
Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I start by wishing the Prime Minister well on his trip to the White House. It won't be an easy meeting, but we're all behind him for our national interest. But it's already clear that under President Trump, we won't be able to rely on the United States, sadly, to help ensure our security against Russian aggression. And that's why we strongly welcome the Prime Minister's decision to increase Britain's defence spending. But Europe must do far more to rearm in the face of Putin's threat, and the UK must lead on that. That's why we back the idea of a new European rearmament bank, so we can finance a big increase in the manufacturing capacity without the need to cut Britain's vital soft power. So will the Prime Minister look at this idea, work across this House and across Europe, so we can make a European rearmament bank actually happen?
Prime Minister.
I'll resist his suggestion that we've got somehow to choose between the US and our European partners. I do not believe that to be the case, and I want to strengthen our already strong relationship with the US. I think it's vital that we do so. I, of course, want to work with our European allies on defence capability and what more we need to do in relation to capability, coordination and funding. And in the longer term, there is a discussion going on amongst allies as to future funding. We're part of that discussion, and I'm happy to share that with the House as it evolves.
Sir Ed Davey.
I hope he's successful in keeping the US on board with our European allies, and I'm glad he's talking about finance and defence. I think if he was to push this European rearmament bank at the summit on Sunday, the European leaders, I think he'd be pushing an open door. Certainly, Prime Minister Tusk is supporting from the Polish point of view. But, Mr. Speaker, if I can turn now to domestic matters and the cost of living crisis that's hitting so many of our constituents. Families in my constituency are really angry that Thames Water is sending them bills this April that will cost them £150 a year more. Thames has already let down so many people, whether it's leaking pipes or pumping their filthy sewage into our rivers. A third of customers' bills are already used just to pay the interest on Thames Water's debt, and now it's going to borrow £3 billion more. Isn't it time to stop making people pay for bailing out the vulture funds drowning Thames Water in debt? Will his government just put this firm out of its misery, put it into special administration so we can sort out that mess and the mess that lot left?
Brilliant.
Well, certainly right about the
Good
mess,
idea. Dig at the Tories.
We've obviously got
Love
the
it,
water bill. It's got very strong measures in it, and I think he supports them.
That's Rosanna Allen.
It's been a non-answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We have heard extraordinary rhetoric coming out of Washington in recent days, and we have seen fascist salutes on our screens. We have witnessed wild statements about Palestinians being expelled from Gaza, and we have seen our allies labelled dictators.
Yes.
Britain's interests are best served by standing with Ukraine, working closely with our European allies, by upholding international law and remaining a strong part of NATO. Can the Prime Minister assure us that this will form a central part of his message when he meets world leaders this week?
Minister.
Well, we certainly stand with Ukraine, and I think I speak for the whole House when I say that. And as I set out yesterday, NATO is the bedrock of our security. It's been our most important alliance for many, many years, as important today as it's ever been. And we build that alliance by working with the US, We have a special and deep relationship with the US. That's not just words, that's to do with security, defence, intelligence capability, vitally important for both sides. But we also work with our European allies, and it is that ability to work with the US and the EU and European partners that has held the peace for so many years and needs to hold the peace for many years to come.
Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prior to the election, the Labour Party promised to reduce energy bills by £300, yet on their watch, energy bills are about to increase by almost £300. So may I ask, is the failure to keep that promise a consequence of government incompetency, or have the Labour Party been caught lying to the public?
It sounds so angry, doesn't he?
We're very proud of the fact that we are pushing forward for energy independence, which will keep our bills lower. And he knows very well what my position is. But I note that, again, he's very quiet on the SNP record. And I'll tell you for why. Just this week, we've seen the attainment gap widen in Scotland, pupils leaving schools with no qualifications rising, those from deprived areas going to work falling. Instead of playing the politics of grievance, they need to take responsibility for their own record.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent Mike Addison was one of a kind, a physical disability rugby league world champion with England and Warrington Wolves, and an avid volunteer for the club and foundation. He was a friend to everyone who knew him. Tragically, he died at age 45, having taken his own life. One death by suicide is too many, and every suicide is preventable. But ONS data puts the rate in the North West at over double the rate of London, and with a 17% increase last year. So can the Prime Minister outline what more can be done working across government to help Warrington meet our target of eliminating suicide?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I thank her for raising this tragic case? And my thoughts, I'm sure the thoughts of the House, are with the family, friends and teammates of Mike at Warrington Wolves. I mean, she's right, Mr. Speaker, that one death by suicide is one too many, and reducing the number is a vital part of our health mission. We are recruiting an additional 8,500 mental health workers, especially trained to support people at risk of suicide. We're committed to taking forward the suicide prevention strategy for England. I'm sure this is something the whole House will support.
Dr Neil Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the Prime Minister's statement committing us to increase defence spending and reaffirming the UK's support for Ukraine and their democratically elected leader, President Zelensky. A wartime leader like Winston Churchill, who also had to delay elections because his country faced an existential threat. As the Prime Minister travels to Washington, with this House and the country willing him to succeed, will he invoke the legacy of Churchill in making the case for the UK to be the key in bridging transatlantic relations, to bring us all together for the sake of freedom and democracy across the world?
Prime Minister.
I thank him for his question. Can I pick up on both elements? Because President Zelensky is a democratically elected leader, and suspending elections was precisely what we did in this country when we were fighting in the Second World War. And secondly, on his point, yes, I do think that the UK has successfully been a bridge between the US and Europe for many, many years. It's vital that we continue in that role, and that's why my message to President Trump is that the relationship between our two countries needs to go from strength to strength. It's all very strong, but also working at the same time with our European allies.
Jessica T.
Thanks for the super chat, Ivan.
On Monday night, there was a brutal double stabbing in my constituency. This adds to a long line of horrific knife attacks that have included 3 fatalities over the past 2 years. I know the Prime Minister is aware of the particular challenges we face in Bournemouth, and while crime has been going down, I know there is much more he will want to do. So will he join me in praising the crucial work that organisations like Changes Are Made, who give positive activities like boxing to young people, and will he share what more the government can do to tackle knife crime in communities like mine?
Prime Minister.
Thank you for...
Just before we go on, I just want to first of all thank you, Ivan, for the super chat. The animation up. And also, the cheese factor makes a really good point. Increased suicides, a legacy of austerity policies. Absolutely. I mean, this is where we have to measure things. Like, this is why I wouldn't be a good politician, because I couldn't go to America and bend over backwards for Donald Trump. I'll just say what I thought of him, which isn't much. Whereas people like Zelensky, people like Keir Starmer have to go along and say what they need to say. In Zelensky's case, it's to keep the money coming in so he could fight the war against the invaders, the barbarian hordes from Russia. Whereas with Starmer, I mean, he knows that if he misspeaks or upsets dear leader in any way when he visits Donald Trump tomorrow, the economic impact of America putting massive tariffs on us will lead to furthering the mental health crisis that we already suffer from after 14 years of Tory austerity, Brexit, COVID, cuts, and Liz Truss's bloody disastrous mini-budget. We always see whenever an economy takes a hit, what also takes a hit is people's mental health. And yeah, so thanks very much, Ivan. I'm just going to put it onto 1.2 speed. I'm sorry that speeds it up a little bit, but just to get back up to speed.
Raising this really important issue. Yesterday we introduced our crime and policing bill, which is central to our plan for change and halving knife crime. It involves new powers to seize and destroy knives found on private property and a new criminal offence of possessing a bladed article with intent to cause harm. Plus, Mr Speaker, tougher penalties for selling dangerous weapons to under 18s, stricter rules for online sales under Ronan's law, and we'll continue with that work.
Kitchen knives don't need a policy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The floods of 2013-14 devastated Datchet, Horton and Wraysbury, and the flooding last January wasn't much better. But shockingly, the River Thames scheme, as currently proposed, continues to leave my constituents at risk. The Council was asked to cough up tens of millions, but like very many, is cash-strapped. Does the Prime Minister, therefore...
Hang on, this is a Tory.
Does the Prime Minister,
this is a Tory complaining about councils being
cash-strapped? The only option to protect my constituents is funding Trial 1 of the River Thames scheme as a national strategic infrastructure.
Why are they cash-strapped, Jack?
Why are they the Honourable Member has raised this issue before, and it's obviously an important issue for his constituents. We inherited flood defences in their worst state on record, Mr. Speaker.
Tory there.
That's why we're investing £2.6 billion
Tory complaining about cash-strapped councils.
Properties. I understand that the options to reduce flood risk to these communities are being considered as part of the Datchet and Hythe End Flood Alleviation Scheme, and I'll ensure that he has a meeting with the relevant minister to take forward the work.
I need a new pop-up that says, that's rich.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In order for the government's growth agenda to be a success, it must be felt in all areas of the country, including Doncaster and South Yorkshire, where we have green growth transport companies, including hybrid air vehicles and clean power hydrogen, alongside the reopening of Doncaster Sheffield Airport. So will the Prime Minister put on his record support for Mayor Ros Jones, who has led on the airport reopening, and also set out how the growth agenda will override those traditional patterns of investment mainly in the south of England and bring prosperity to South Yorkshire and indeed the north as a whole?
Yes, I will. Doncaster's got a proud industrial heritage, rail, steel and coal, an extraordinary potential for industries of the future from hydrogen to AI, and we are focused, Mr Speaker, on devolving more power and funding to metro mayors to support regional industry. We will work with the mayors of Doncaster and South Yorkshire to support efforts to reopen Doncaster Sheffield Airport.
Graham Hughes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I have the privilege to represent the home of Speyside malts, some amongst the finest Scotch whiskies. Last week, the UK Government unveiled damaging plans to grant a different definition of single malt to English producers to that of Scottish single malts. This is entirely inconsistent with the global reputation of the quality of single malts and seeks to tear up a well-established definition of what a single malt is, pulling the rug yet further from underneath the Scotch whisky industry. Given the backlash from the industry to this and the damage this could cause to Scotch whisky exports and jobs, will the Prime Minister's word on whisky be his whisky bond by backing the industry to the hilt and scrapping these plans?
Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, we do support Scotch whisky. It's a really important part of our economy, and that's why we allocated £5 million in the budget and why we're working with Brazil, which is worth £25 million for Scotch whisky. It's what we're doing to support industry and sectors in Scotland. And in addition to that, in another sector, at the weekend I was very pleased to be able to announce the £200 million investment in Grangemouth and the future for generations there.
Steve Brace.
Speaker, yesterday I returned from Ukraine, having spent 4 days with a cross-party delegation of parliamentarians. The Ukrainians we met from across society had one simple message. They were deeply thankful for our partnership, and they want us to know that they can overcome the Russian invasion because they must. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that alongside our welcome 100-year partnership, now is the time for the UK to redouble our efforts alongside our European partners to help secure Ukraine's future as a free, democratic and sovereign European nation?
Yes, I do, and I'm really proud of the way the United Kingdom has risen to the challenge of the last 3 years in a united way, both in terms of the capability and funding that we provided to Ukraine, but also the throwing open of homes here for those fleeing. And I was privileged to welcome some of the families to Downing Street on Monday, and it was a human reminder of the impact that it's having on them, their children and their families.
Dr. Keir Miliband.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The whole House wants the Prime Minister's meeting with President Trump to be a success, which requires credibility on our defence spending commitments. The Leader of the Opposition gave the Prime Minister an opportunity to unambiguously rule out the funding of any Chagos deal coming from the defence budget, and I'm not clear that he did that. I want him to be taken seriously in Washington, so I'll make it really easy for him. Will he rule out the funding of any Chagos deal coming from the defence budget, yes or no?
Yes. Prime Minister.
Speaker, as I said, when the deal is complete, I will put it before the House with the costings. The money yesterday was allocated to our capability, the single biggest increase, sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War.
There you go. I'm sorry, but
the whole country stands behind the people of Ukraine. But there is also a view that taking money from aid and development to spend on armaments and tanks makes people less safe, not more safe, because the desperation and the poverty that so often leads to warfare is what aid and development money is supposed to counter.
We're being
Mr. Speaker,
attacked.
I said yesterday,
I get you. Completely get it, but we're
overseas
being
development
attacked.
is important. I'm proud of what we've done. It wasn't a decision I took lightly or I wanted to take, but it is important at this moment that we put the defence spending, the defence and security of our country and Europe uppermost. We will, of course, make sure that we're able to fulfil our humanitarian obligations in relation to Gaza, Ukraine and Sudan and other vital work. And I want to be clear that we do, of course, want to go back and increase that funding as soon as we're able to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope the Prime Minister knows that when he does travel to Washington to meet the former leader of the free world, he does so with the hopes and prayers of this House and the country. Probably no more serious a meeting could be taking place. Now, whilst Ukraine will clearly dominate, will the Prime Minister undertake to raise with President Trump that Canada is a valued, respected and much loved member of both NATO and our Commonwealth, and that this childish nonsense of a 51st state should be called out by the Prime Minister for what it is?
Prime Minister.
Well, thank you for raising this issue. UK and Canada are close allies and have been for a very long time, with a partnership based on a shared history and a shared set of values, and a determination to be an active force for good in the world. We work closely with them on issues of the Commonwealth, on NATO and, of course, Five Eyes, intelligence sharing, and we will work to strengthen that relationship.
Michelle Scotland.
Isn't that a burger chain?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Barrow and Furness has always been ahead of the times in terms of high-skilled engineering. In light of the Prime Minister's historic commitment to rise defence spending, the biggest increase since the end of the Cold War, I invite him to visit and see the many SMEs who can support this vital supply chain. Does he agree that investing in these businesses will not only deliver our nuclear deterrent, but improve security and the economy for us all?
Well, I thank her for raising this question, and we'll obviously consider her invitation. Defence spending, Mr. Speaker, already supports more than 430,000 jobs across the United Kingdom, and I'd like to recognise the contribution made by the workers in Barrow and Furness.
Mr. Speaker, in my constituency, the planning inspector chose to use the term grey belt to pass a battery energy storage system application before the order was laid in this House to change the NPPF, and without recognising the moratorium for local authorities to manage their local plans. This decision failed to recognise the green belt that protects us against urban sprawl, and it failed to recognise the proximity to a school, a church and a graveyard. So can the Prime Minister define what grey belt actually is, or is it simply a grey area to allow for inappropriate development?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not across the details of the individual case that she raises, as she will understand. But I am in favour of making sure that we can have the infrastructure and the houses that we need to grow our economy. And one of the problems we had in the last 14 years was an assertion or rhetoric that we wanted homes and infrastructure, but when the decision all that came up, the answer was always no. The answer cannot always be no.
Can I thank the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary for their efforts to secure the release of Allah Abdel Fattah, the human rights campaign. It's a British human rights campaigner who's been imprisoned in Egypt now for over 10 years. The Prime Minister will know, because he's met the family, that his mother is on the 150th day of her hunger strike and her health is failing rapidly. Could I ask the Prime Minister to pick up the phone to President Sisi and seek the release of Allah to save his life, also that of his mother's?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank him for raising this really important case, and as he says, I did meet the mother and the family just a few days ago, and it is an incredibly difficult situation for them, and I can assure him I will do everything I can to ensure the release in this case, and that includes phone calls as necessary. I've raised it before, I'll raise it again, we raise it and will continue to do so. I gave my word to the family that that's what I do, that I will do, and I will.
People in Northern Ireland are sick to the teeth of paramilitaries, of the menace, of the sectarianism and of keeping people stuck in the past. In light of the announcement yesterday on transition, does the Prime Minister recognise that people will be highly sceptical of this process, that there must be real learnings from the failed transitions of the past, that there can be no rewards for paramilitaries for hanging on, robust criminal justice, the flags off the lampposts and on street corners, and community-funded policing to allow communities that have been brutalised by paramilitaries to finally look forward to a confident and shared future?
Couldn't agree more about taking the fucking flags down.
Can I thank you for raising this important and obviously sensitive issue? We are committed to making progress towards ending paramilitarism once and for all in Northern Ireland, and that's why we've agreed to support a short independent exercise to look at a formal process, and I'll make sure that the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland keeps her updated.
Rishi Sunak.
Oh, hello. He's still alive.
Mr. Speaker.
I thought he was going to be.
Mr. Speaker.
He was going to be in America.
Prostate cancer is now our country's most common cancer, and yet there is no national screening programme. We made progress towards this in government, but yet there is more to do, which is why I'm delighted to have joined Prostate Cancer Research, the charity, as an ambassador. I'm grateful to the Health Secretary for his engagement thus far, and could I ask the Prime Minister to ensure that we do have a targeted national screening programme for the most at-risk groups of prostate cancer, so that we can not only save the NHS money, make progress towards the government's early diagnosis targets, but most crucially, save thousands of lives.
I was going to say it. I agree with Rishi Sunak.
Can I thank him for raising this, and can I thank him for using his authority and reputation to support this vital cause, which will make a material difference, and I look forward to working with him on it. We do share a commitment to detecting prostate cancer earlier and treating it faster, and we must do that. Our National Cancer Plan will improve the way we treat cancer right across the country, and I'll make sure he's fully informed of the steps that we're taking, and we'll work with him.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Prime Minister join with me in wishing all Welsh citizens everywhere a very happy St David's Day on Saturday? And will he also join with me in welcoming the latest news of the £600 million investment by Copenhagen infrastructure partners to ensure that Bute Energy and Green Gen Cymru can take forward the bold ambition to achieve 100% green electricity production by 2035 in Wales, thus providing much-needed sustainable green jobs for the people of Wales?
By 2030.
Well, can I wish her and her constituents a very happy St David's Day, and join her in welcoming this significant new investment into her constituency that will ensure good jobs, well-paid, skilled jobs, and of course the transition to energy security and lower bills. And I know her constituency will play a vital role in that.
Jeremy Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Jeremy Hunt?
Does the Prime Minister agree that our biggest single foreign policy priority is the preservation of NATO with America at its heart? And if so, following his welcome announcement yesterday, is the next step to talk to our European allies and for all of us to agree to spend 3% of GDP on defence within a specified timescale, so that we can look the President in the eye and say that Europe is finally pulling its weight on defence?
Prime Minister.
Well, I agree with him entirely in terms of the
David was named after me.
In terms of NATO. Putin thought he could weaken NATO. He's only made it stronger and larger. NATO's strength comes from the US and European partners and others working together, and that is absolutely the focus of my work at the moment. It is right, as he says, that European countries, including the United Kingdom, do need to do more on capability, on coordination, and on defence spend. That must be not seen as a project separate to NATO, but part of an essential project that ensures that NATO is there for decades and decades to come, preserving the peace, just as it has been for 75 years. I guess.
Final question, Newman Steinbeck.
Mr Speaker, the Grangemouth refinery closure has loomed over central Scotland since Petronas' announcement in November 2023. 2 weeks ago, Scottish Labour colleagues and I met with the National Wealth Fund to make the case for investment in Grangemouth. I strongly welcome the exceptional commitment this Labour by committing £200 million from the National Wealth Fund. Can I ask the Prime Minister what steps the Government will be taking to secure permanent, good jobs at Grangemouth?
Well, can I thank him for being such a great champion for Scotland and his constituency? Mr Speaker, Grangemouth is really important to communities in Scotland, to the economy in Scotland. It's not a charity case. It's got incredible potential, huge opportunity, and that's why at the weekend I was very pleased to announce £200 million from the National Wealth Fund to incentivise private investment. That, of course, Mr Speaker, follows £100 million in the growth deal that we announced earlier. This is about jobs for decades to come in Grangemouth. It's a really exciting opportunity, and we intend to seize it.
I hope His Presidency of the Assembly of North Macedonia, His Excellency Mr Afrim Gasha, enjoyed questions. Right, that completes PMQs.
There you go. We had a representative from North Macedonia in the House. Okay, so I'm going to cut the audio there. Sorry for the first few seconds. The audio stream wasn't on. I'll get rid of that. Don't need to listen to that anymore. I'll just listen to you and what you've got to say. Powers of the people saying, gotta go. Go to our practice at 1 and got to walk there. Can't afford the bus fare. See you all next stream. Oh, well, thanks very much for being with us for this far. Batteries near a graveyard. The horror, says Gallifreyan Ren. It's a bit tricky, isn't it? Because I'm reading messages from like a few minutes ago. Patrick saying, remember him? Yeah, I don't know whether you're talking about Rishi Sunak or whether you're talking about Jeremy Hunt. Like, didn't Jeremy Hunt look really, really nervous? Like that he didn't come across as a statesman that had been a part of the Tory government for over a decade. He came across like he was really scared. Like this was his first freshman speech in Parliament. You know, the first time he's actually got to stand up and say something. I think the Tories, at least some of them, they've had the confidence knocked out of them, haven't they? They seem really timid. And like the fact that they're all sort of murmuring discontent about the fact that Badenoch is so bad at it. Like, she is so bad. I mean, the first question was all right today, but then the follow-up questions, they were just shite. And she asked the same question again. And Keir Starmer's got an answer to all the questions she's going to ask, because it's really obvious what she's going to ask about. But then there were two questions, and one from Kemi Badenoch, and then another one from a backbench Tory MP asking about Chagos Islands. And like, Keir Starmer gave the same answer twice, which was, I'm going to put it before Parliament, so I'll show you what the deal's going to be, and then we can vote on it, so you'll know. But we're not ruling anything out just at the moment. I mean, it is just a bit weird. Will the Prime Minister please announce, in the middle of negotiations, how many, what cards he's holding? It's like, you negotiate, don't you? You don't rule anything out. It's why it annoys me when the likes of Theresa May and now Keir Starmer or Rachel Reeves talk about red lines. I never understand that with politicians. I've got clear red lines, but then the situation changes. Donald Trump gets elected, and they're still like, oh, but I've got me red lines. I've got me red lines. It's like, now you set yourself up to fail. What you want to do, and what Trump does, he doesn't have any fucking red lines. That guy's never known what a red line was in his entire life. He just goes, fuck it, I'll do it. I'll do this, I'll do that. I'll throw everything out there. He doesn't give a fuck. He's not putting that. Oh, I didn't hold up to my manifesto commitments. I mean, I saw some left-wing commentator, like that ultra left, so left they're coming round to Farage's way of thinking, I think, and they were talking about the fact that Starmer didn't carry out all of his pledges that he wanted to do if he became leader of Labour. And I'm like, hang on. I'm pretty sure no one on the hard left of Labour voted for Keir Starmer. They all voted for a woman whose name escapes me. I bet you'll tell me in the chat. Anyway, they didn't vote for him. And the people like myself who have been members of Labour until 2017 and then left, or 2016, and then left in disgust at what Labour were doing, promoting facilitating the Conservatives' flagship policy of Brexit, making the poorest people in the country poorer, making the rich richer. I thought that went against the tenets of socialism and everything that I believe in politically. I don't want that. I want the rich to be poorer and the poor to be richer. That's what I'd like. I'd like some kind of spirit level. You know, like great leveler. That's what I want. The great leveling. The great leveling. Bring it on. But yeah, going about this guy I didn't vote for. He didn't maintain his promise. And you know the left-wing commentators I'm talking about, because you've seen them. And it's like, first of all, okay, that was 5 fucking years ago, right? Okay? 5 years ago, right? And secondly, it was before COVID, okay? So when they were putting forward their pledges of things they would like to do if they were elected, first of all, COVID came along and just blew everything out the water, right? But then secondly, there's this. We don't live in a dictatorship, thank heavens. If you become leader of a political party, you can't just do a Maggie Thatcher and go, oh, 1 vote for, 19 against, the motion is carried, like she famously did once in a cabinet meeting because she wanted to do something and everyone else was saying no. You can't get away with that, especially if you're a left-wing party, especially if you're Labour. You have to make compromises, and politics is the art of compromises. And it's really easy for us, really easy for me, to sit here and go, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't. What they should do is this. What they should do is that. But we don't have to compromise. There's nothing restraining us from like what we want to do. We just do what we want to do. Whereas these guys, like, they can't. Like, even if they did, like, we're a bit, I don't know, a bit more militant in their way of doing things, they wouldn't be able to get the shit done, that half the shit they want to get done. And you look at the Labour Party manifesto in 2017 under Corbyn, it wasn't that much different from the Labour manifesto of 2015, and the 2019 wasn't that much different from the one of 2017. It still talked about the same sort of stuff, about levelling up and helping people get out of the shit because the Tories have put us in. But things like the nationalisation of the railways, bloody brilliant. That's been in all the manifestos, and now they're doing it. They don't want to cost the taxpayer anything, so they're not buying out these franchises. They're letting them lapse, and then they're taking them back into government control, one by one. We're already, 25% of the way there or something? Should be finished by the end of this parliament, probably, or the start of the next decade. We should have them all under the umbrella of a nationalised rail system. Fantastic, brilliant, bring it on. But like some of the other stuff that I want, like rejoining the EU, or at least fighting against it, fighting against leaving it, which I would like to see in the latter half of the tens, of the decade of the tens. They weren't there. They weren't there. UBI wasn't there. There was a thing in the 2019 election about having a look at UBI, but it wasn't any kind of solid commitment to it. It was a bit woolly. And one thing that I'll talk about till I think the cows come home, and you're probably bored of me just repeating this over and over again, is a lot of it is to do with communication. I didn't like, cards on the table, I didn't like Corbyn. He gave me ick vibes. I don't know why. I just didn't like him. And then he, from the get-go, like I voted for Andy Benham. Hey, I've still got my literature that I got as a Labour Party member back in 2015 to who to vote for party leader, and I voted for Andy Benham. I never liked Corbyn. There's something about him that I just didn't like, right? But then once he got elected, I thought, well, he's the leader now, and I will withhold judgment and see what he does. And he just let me down. At every given opportunity, he just let me down. But he had a good comms team about him. So even though he was doing stuff that was very similar, or proposing stuff that's very similar to what Labour are proposing now and Labour are actually doing now, he got away with it because the comms around him was pretty good. It appealed to people who might not otherwise be interested in politics. A lot of people I know, feel like their political awakening came about because of Jeremy Corbyn. It did. And that's what got them into politics. And now they're really into politics. Okay, great, cool. But at the same time, I don't think Starmer's got anyone into politics, really? Unless they've joined the party to fight against him or something. But, inspired people. I don't think he's there. Doing exactly the same thing. And it just goes to show, we'll bang on about it again, just how important comms are. How important it is to communicate your message and get it out there to people. So they're thinking about it. So they're thinking about what you're doing and who you are. Most people still don't know who a lot of Labour MPs are. And even now they're in government. Richard, you think they'll do a bit more to get themselves out there. But, Ivan, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Thank you very much, Ivan. Ivan's been very generous today. To be fair, we all have human beings have our own personal red lines. Oh, yeah, okay, Ivan. Yeah, I get that. But as a politician, I think when you ask that question, will the Prime Minister do this? Will the Prime Minister do that? You say, look, nothing's off the table. That's it. That's the line. We're willing to negotiate. Do a Trump. Say you're willing to make a deal. But we have to see what happens. We don't know what's going to happen next week. No one knows. You can have a guess. Ivan, another £5 super chat. Thank you very much, Ivan. As soon as it's economically and financially feasible, I really do believe water should be renationalised. It's essential to life. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was a question asked about that, and Starmer said a very sensible question asked by Ed Davey, who I wish was the leader of the opposition, but he's a leader of the Lib Dems, they're the third party. They were very nearly the leader. He was very nearly the leader of the opposition, the way things were going. But he made this point about Thames Water, but I think it's for all water companies, United Utilities in Liverpool, Northumbria Water up here in Durham. We need to have a look at how these things are run. They're a monopoly that have borrowed eye-watering sums of money for no reason, no good reason. There's no excuse for it. There's no excuse for what they've done. Pumping shit into our rivers, polluting our country. There's not a single watercourse in the country now that isn't polluted with effluent, with people's shit. And that's because the water companies wanted to make profits for some faceless shareholder on the other side of the fucking planet. No. Just stop that. Just stop that now. But I understand that the government don't want to take on Thames Water's bill. So, as Ed Davey said, put them in special measures. Put them in special measures until you get to a point where you have to get them to declare bankruptcy. And then, sorry, your investment can go up or down. So if you've lent money to this company and then the company goes bump, try and claw back something for yourself. But generally speaking, you don't have to put money into companies. You don't have to buy shares. No one is forcing you to do this. And you know what? There's millions of people in this country who have lost hundreds, thousands of pounds on the lottery. More people lose on the lottery than ever win it. Obviously, clearly, it's 13 million to 1 that you will win. And since the mid-90s, when the last lottery started, to this day, you will have people who have spent, I would say thousands, tens of thousands, possibly even more, trying to win the lottery, cumulatively, Maybe over 100,000, maybe over 100,000 pounds of their money trying to win the goddamn lottery, and they haven't. Your investment may go up or down. They've invested in something, they've not got anything out of it. Maybe they've got the thrill of seeing if they win or not each week. Maybe that's fun, I don't know. But you can't expect, when you give money to a company that is obviously doing evil, that money's going to increase in value for you. Your investment may go up or down. There is no obligation for these pension funds in Canada to invest in British water companies. They decided to do so, and I'm sorry, Canada, it's your own lookout. No one forced them to do that, and I shouldn't have to have shit in my rivers because of some pension fund in freaking Canada. Or in this country, to be honest with you, you can fuck off. Did you get insurance? No, you should have got insurance. Oh well, what a shame. Never mind. Grenfell inquiry phase 2 statement being read by Angela Rayner. Barely any Tories in the House to hear it. Utterly shameful, worth catching up on. Yeah, Nick and Diff, sorry, I didn't know that was coming. I would have stayed. I would have stayed on the PMQs if I'd known that. Sorry, Nick and Diff. Rebecca Long Bailey, that was it. I can't remember, she had like a double-barrel name. It sounds quite posh, but she's not posh. Alex says Labour need to stop feeding bad press things to moan about and don't need to be moaned about. Yeah, and there was that thing last year, wasn't there, when Keir Starmer was making these speeches where it's just like doom and gloom and a bit more doom and gloom. And it was just like, where's the hope? Where's the hope, man? And they've dialed that back a bit now, thank God. But yeah, they really need to be having these... They need to be communicating better. And one of the things that Labour's done, which I think is remarkable, is they set a target, right, for 2 million new hospital appointments within the first year, extra hospital appointments to get rid of this backlog within 2 years, within 1 year, sorry, and they did it within 7 months. That's amazing, and they should be crowing that from the hill, from the rooftops, from the hillsides. They should be lighting torches. They should be lighting the Brecon beacons, the beacons on the Brecon, to say, oh, it's not called that anymore, is it? What's it called now? Shit, I've forgotten. It's got a Welsh name. Anyway, yeah, the reason my middle name is David is because the day after I was born was St. David's Day. So there you go. Now you know. Now you know. Okay, Colin Baker, Fab Reads, says MZ. What was Colin Baker talking about? My book. Were you talking about my book? Man of the World. Available from all bad booksellers. And some good ones. Okay, One Angry Pagan, I have a double barrel first name. Oh, Duke, is it they like that in America. And the thing is, it's the opposite of posh in America, isn't it? Because if you have a name like Billy Bob Thornton, you don't think that they're a member of the aristocracy, do you? Whereas if his name was Robert Thornton Lee, you go, oh, he's a part of the Thornton Lee empire then, yes. But there you go. Rock Show says, I interviewed digital marketing for a digital marketing job at Labour pre-election, and after 25 years in the trade, was easily the most qualified, but all posts went to recent college grads, possibly says a lot. Says, well, I interviewed for a job with them to basically do what I'm doing on this channel, but working together with other content creators. I've got 50 content creators on numbers on my phone who I can call on, and some of them really quite big names. And I just went, look, this is all my contacts. I have a cordial relationship with all these people. I can get them on shows to talk about Labour policies. You get me some Labour MPs. We can do some content, and I will make you amazing content every day. Just freaking pay me, all right? And they went, no, we're going to get an agency to do it. And do you know what? It was a year ago. It was a year ago on my birthday. It was actually my birthday. Instead of just, celebrating with my family and friends, I went down to London for a freaking interview on my birthday for a job that I didn't get. That, like Rock Show, I was uniquely qualified for that job. It was essentially a job doing what I'm doing here, doing what I've been doing for over 1,500 live shows on this channel. But we'll get an agency to do it, and then you can get some temp. It's got 1 month experience of working on Adobe Premiere, and there's me sitting here with 25 plus years experience of like video editing, video creation, presenting, creating content, writing content, being interviewed, doing fucking hell. That's fine. It's fine. Speaking at big events. Labour should have faith in you, Graham. Patrick, yeah, I know, but people just don't. I mean, it's one of the things that I've always felt in my life is like people do sort of just underestimate me. I feel like I've been underestimated all my life, and it's probably because I'm quite outspoken or gobby, as some might say, and a Scouser as well. Got a little bit of an accent. You might have noticed. And you know, I always think back to the day I got my A-level results, and I was predicted to C in 2Ds. I wasn't even expecting to go to university. I didn't get any UCAS offers, and it wasn't that I was shit at school. It's just that I was ADHD. So although I have a very, very quick mind and remember lots of shit, it didn't go down very well, in school, finishing my homework 5 minutes before the lesson started. And I remember getting my A-level results from Mr. Rowe, who was the deputy head teacher, who absolutely had it in for me. He would scream and shout. He's like a drill sergeant. He was like the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket, yeah, but that was a teacher in my school. And I remember I was like, oh God, why is he giving out the results? And instead of just like giving you the results like a normal thing that would happen, you walk off and you see your results for A-levels, he was sat behind this table and he would open your results. He would read them and then give them to you. And it's just this smug face as he opened my results, just like, yeah. And then he looked at them and he's like, oh, it appears you've done rather well. I got 2 A's and a B. And I got into Manchester on clearing. Like, my girlfriend's mum drove me to Manchester and I banged on the door. And there was 90 places on the history and politics course there, politics and modern history. There were 90 places and I was the 91st student on that place. And I managed to get in. And then 20 years later, 20 years after I graduated, I was asked to go back to my old school and give the speech to the GCSEs prize winners. The kids come back from sixth form who did the GCSEs, and we give prize for the best, most improved, and all that kind of stuff. And I got to give that speech, and I was just there thinking, fucking hell. If that teacher who absolutely hated me, made me life a misery, if he knew that in 20 years' time they'll be asking me to make this speech, he'll be like, nah, fuck off. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen in a million years. But it did happen, Mr. Rowe. It did fucking happen. Anyway, so this says I feel the same, Graham. Yeah. Duke says, yeah, well, my inferiority complex isn't as good as yours, says Duke Vengeance. Well, there's also imposter syndrome, which I suffer from a lot. And when I talk about my travels around the world, I know some friends have asked, talking about his fucking travels again. Part of that is just to remind myself that I actually did them. Because sometimes it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like I actually did that thing. I just watched someone else. I watched someone else's TV show, the guy who looks remarkably like me with the same name and the same accent. And he went to every country in the world without flying. I couldn't do that. That's insane. Who can do that? That's a pretty difficult thing to do, especially if no one had ever done it before. I did it. I didn't just do it. I proved it was possible. Much to the chagrin of all the people who said no in the years leading up to me doing that adventure, said, no, you'll die. No, there's no chance. You can't do it. It's impossible. And I'm like, do not tell me what I cannot do. Hey, Ivan. Wow, another £10. Thank you, Ivan. Ivan's been so generous today. Thank you, Ivan. Most of the time, I have a lot of time for Starmer, but not when it comes to disability issues. It really annoyed me when he praised Amanda Pritchard. She failed on mental health crisis in my area. I don't know who Amanda Pritchard is, Ivan. Was she a Labour MP or is she a Tory MP? Let me know a bit more details on that. But she failed on the mental health crisis in my area. I'm sorry to hear that, Ivan. Thanks for the super chat. I feel like there are good MPs and there are bad MPs, and there are some MPs who are forced into doing things that they probably wouldn't want to do because of the idea of collective responsibility in both cabinet and in the government. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's up to us to keep an eye on it and keep these people straight and make sure that they don't do corrupt things or do stupid things. And if they do, get rid of them. And one thing that I'm hoping going forward, I'd like the whole electoral system in this country to change, because first past the post is a nonsense. But I'd also like us to, and I think we're doing this, be a bit more aware of what our MPs are doing for us in our own constituencies. And I think the best example of this is the fact that Liz Truss got kicked out of South Norfolk. Yeah, she got kicked out. She got kicked out. They said that the people of her constituency said, "You're right, love. I don't want you anymore. Go on, fucking sling your hook." I don't know why they sound like they were from Yorkshire, but still, that gives me hope. That gives me hope. So hopefully these MPs will be judged on their own merits, not just the merits of the party that they represent, but like, what have you done for me? What have you done for me lately, MPs? Because I've known Labour MPs who are absentees. You know, they hardly ever visit their constituencies. Back in the past, I don't know about now, but this is when Labour were in from 1997 to 2010. And obviously there's Tory MPs who spend no time in their constituencies. And then you've got people like Nigel Farage who's just out feathering his own nest every 5 seconds and he doesn't give a shit about the people from Clacton. I'm waiting for a referral, says Diz. Well, yeah, I'm Diz says ADHD is a bag of badgers. Well, I've had my official diagnosis, so I do have ADHD. But I have to wait for any kind of medication or treatment for at least 6 months. At least 6 months. It might be October before I actually get any kind of treatment. Might be November. I'm not sure. And then they'll start titration. So that sounds like fun. Nick and Diff says, can't be that good if she's just been kicked in the post. Sorry, resigned. Is that in reference to Amanda Pritchard? She was head of the NHS England who just resigned. Oh, okay. Okay, well, okay, Diz. Ivan, yeah, she's gone. I guess, again, like, we don't have to be cordial. We can say, she was fucking shit. But if you're in that position of having to be diplomatic, having to be a politician, having to be a statesperson, you can't just go, oh my God, who cracked one up? Oh, mate, that absolutely reeks. Get out. Although that would be an hilarious response to that. You can't really get away with it. This says, I have a friend in the same position. And Anne Phillips says, Liz Truss doesn't really believe in democracy unless democracy has the great good sense to recognise her genius. These people do not suffer from imposter syndrome, do they? They're like the opposite of imposter syndrome. It's like delusions of grandeur, but just on another level, and they all have it. All these Farage and Boris Johnson and Liz Truss and Nigel, what's his name, Trump and all, Elon Musk, they've all got the opposite of imposter syndrome. They've got the I can do that syndrome where they believe that they're fucking masters of absolutely everything. And that pisses me off on a visceral level, because I go back to the cave where the oracle lived in Delphi in ancient Greece, and above the cave was written the words, obviously in ancient Greek, know thyself. And I think they are, that is, for a code to live by, just summed up in 2 words. I think that's fucking fantastic. Know what you're good at, know what you're not good at. It's fine. We can't all be good at everything. But Liz Truss is so fucking thick. She thinks she is. She thinks she's brilliant. And, I can do that. And we all know someone, don't we? We all know someone who, the car breaks down and suddenly the world's greatest mechanic. You go to football, suddenly they're the world's greatest footy manager. You do anything in life, and suddenly, no, that's not what you want to do it like this. You want to do it like this. And you're like, fucking hell. Is there anything you can't do? I don't know. Then you take them to karaoke and you're like, but yeah, so I would like fewer of those people in public life causing trouble, and a few more people who, I'm not saying you have to second guess yourself at every move, but people who have that sort of ability to be humble and put others before themselves. And that, just to round off, is, I think, typifies Vladimir Zelensky. He's now putting Ukraine, the people of Ukraine, before himself. Maybe even his own freedom. We don't know what's going to happen on Friday. Trump might arrest him and throw him in jail. I don't know. And he doesn't know. George, last super chat, I think, of the show. Well, I'm signing off now. George, my GP is referring me for an autism assessment. Oh, good. Get the assessment, because it's about just making reasonable adjustments in your life. It's not like, I've had to paint the room a different fucking colour because I've got ADHD. It's just that I understand why I do things now, and I feel less bad. I used to just feel bad about the fact I couldn't remember that I'm supposed to make the bed, or I'm supposed to do the dishes, or I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do that, or I said I was going to do this, and then I don't do it. I feel less bad about it now. I feel like, okay, so I have difficulty with executive functioning, so I have to have, a to-do list. I have to have alarms on my phone. I've got to 47 alarms on my phone that go off throughout the day or throughout the week to remind me to do things, because otherwise I will forget. And it seems mad that like I feel like I've got loads of things to do, but my time management isn't the best. And I always think that I only need X amount of time to do that, and a lot of times that's not the right amount of time to do it by any stretch of the imagination. But I'll say this for myself. Although I do have ADHD and I do find it hard to get that executive functioning going, the fact that I can start so many of these shows within a couple of minutes of when I say they're going to start, considering how complex all these different layers are and animations, and there's so many things to go wrong, the mic and the lights and the fucking camera and the streaming software and everything else. I think I do quite well. But since I got my diagnosis, I think I've got better than I was. I'll look back on some of the shows that I presented before I got the diagnosis, and they're nowhere near as well prepared for, because I've learned that I need to prepare for these shows. It's always been a bit of a thing of mine of like, I'll just turn up and just say what comes into my mind. I don't read from a speech, you know. If I do a talk, and I did the talk to the kids in school or in my old school, or when I do a talk at like a Remain or Rejoin March or something like that, I don't have notes. I just turn up. I just shoot from the hip, and I like doing that. But I feel like for the audience here, you don't want me freewheeling all the time, and having that extra bit of structure to and having notes to refer to when I'm doing these shows. I hope it makes it better. Not that I have notes for this one, because I don't know what's going to happen in PMQs. But that said, I think that the diagnosis for me has helped me already, without any medication, without any intervention from elsewhere, just in the day-to-day management of my life. So there you go. Anyway, so yeah. Billy Kershaw, it's a privilege to be part of this. Oh, thanks, Billy. One Angry Pagan says, still need to get around to doing a show with me and Megan Lee. Yes, I do. Sorry, One Angry Pagan. Can't do it tomorrow because I'm going to Liverpool. I'm going to try and do a show tonight if I can. It'll probably be like Where the Fuck Are We or something. But if we can, and then tomorrow morning I'll be back for Morning Brew at 9 o'clock, and then I'm heading to Liverpool. So hopefully I'll be able to do shows on Friday. I'll be able to do the Morning Brew show, but I won't be doing the agenda. That'll be Phil doing that, possibly with Mike Dix, and then on Friday Night Social, if I can get Mikey Famine to host it for me, he'll do that, because I'm going to be out with my family and friends. Oh my God, there's been one more thing from SG. Thank you for the super chat, SG. £5 super chat. Have you seen the AI video of Trump's vision of Gaza? I cannot think of a more sickening thing. Yes, I have seen it. And oh my God, like, there's something about AI video, AI art. It all looks uncanny valley to me. And I know some people look at it and they don't even notice. But to me, as someone who's made videos all their lives and, you know, essentially moving photographs all their life, and been really, really into film and really into cinema and streaming and all this kind of stuff, to see that uncanny valley come to life, and then it's Trump's vision for the bearded belly dancers of Gaza. I mean, it's horrific. So if you haven't seen it, Trump has posted a 30-second clip of this completely AI-generated video of what Gaza's going to look like when it becomes Trump Gaza or Gaza Trump or something ridiculous along those lines. And it's just, it's like, I felt such a revulsion about it. It's got a massive golden statue of Donald Trump there, you know, on the beach of the casinos and the titty bars and whatever else he wants to make. It's just, and the fact that he posted it, it's just mind blowing. It's mind blowing. Anyway, SG, thank you very much for the super chat. Oh wow, we've got more super chats coming in. Here's me going on. Nearly finished. Gonna sign off in a moment. But yeah, if you get to see this video, I mean, watch it with a bath bag or something. But on every level, it was vomit-inducing for me. From the fact that it was all created by AI, to the content, to the fact that Trump had a golden statue in it, and a little child holding a Trump head balloon, like from Severance, with a balloon, but it's made of gold and it's his head. And oh my God, the guy's insane. There was a leader of Turkmenistan, which used to be an SSR within the Soviet Union, and then it broke away and became an independent country in 1990. And for the first 16 years of its rule, it was run by this guy who called himself Turkmenbashi. And he was mad as a bag of cut snakes. Oh, sorry. And my phone's going off. Let me just turn that off. You can never leave, Graham. Yeah, I know. Do you know what? I'll just press snooze on that, so that might come back on in a couple of minutes' time. Okay, it's telling me I've got to go and do stuff. This guy, Turkmenbashi, he built these statues, these golden statues of himself all over Turkmenistan. And if you go to the capital, Ashgabat, there's this huge arch. It's called the Arch of Neutrality. And at the top is this statue of this guy, you know, Turkmenbashi with his hands up to the... But you know what? He wasn't an Adonis. He wasn't like, Michelangelo's David or anything. He's like this podgy bank manager looking motherfucker. Do you know what I mean? Like there with a big pot belly, wearing clothes. And it's this horrible golden statue. It looks like one of the old Kenner toys of Star Wars. It looks like one of them, but dipped in gold and like 50 foot in the air and really, really big. That's what it looks like. It looks so dementedly tacky. I don't know where to begin. And this is all in this video, 30-second video. Check it out if you must. People have reposted it onto Blue Sky, but it is just the most demented pile of shit you'll ever see. And yeah, good luck defending. Good luck defending that nutter, Trump fans. Ivan, very quickly, thank you very much for the super chat. I'm looking forward to the day when the reasonable adjustments I need for my autism are automatic instead of having to constantly ask. I say this for all disabilities. 100% agree. 100% agree. The fact that I've got to write out something to say I could do with a chair that's not falling apart to help me work. I don't think it's too much to ask. Is that too much to ask? I don't know. To help me focus and do my job. And then Ivan, thank you very much for the other super chat. Don't forget, Graham, I was going to do a show too. Yes, Ivan. We'll get all together. I feel really bad now because I've been. I think with Trump getting in and all the madness over the last month or so, there's been so much to talk about and so much going on, and also I've got things in my own life that have been happening. It's just been difficult. It's just been difficult, but keep on me, Ivan, and thanks very much for giving me a fiver to remind me. Gareth also wants to do a show as well. Okay, all right. Okay, right, I'm going to head off now. Anne Phillips says, the great thing about Statue of Trump is the insurgents will have fun destroying it in a few years. Hey, absolutely. Okay, so on that bombshell, I will be back maybe later if I've got time, because I've got to pack up everything to take to Liverpool. I'll try and do a show tonight, probably do an episode of Where the Fuck Are We? And also, I'll be back tomorrow with Morning Brew at 9 o'clock. And so give us a like on the way out. Oh, I don't have where's my little like thing? I don't have a like. Give me a like. Can everyone give me a like? If you all come together and give me a like, there you go. Thank you for giving me a like. And I will see you either later today or I'll see you tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, bright and early. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for everyone watching. Thanks for the chats. Thanks so much for the super chats. It's really generous, especially for PMQs, which normally doesn't generate that much of an audience. So thank you. Thank you very much. Give us a like on the way out. And until next time, hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.